Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a great day. Now, as you can see, I'm not in my typical filming studio, rather we're in my living room for today's video because we're not going to be speaking about specific stocks or investments. Today we're going to be speaking about, well, the title of the video, which is how and why I chose to quit my job to pursue something completely different than what I was doing there, and that is to, well, make YouTube videos about something that I'm truly passionate about. But yeah, so this video is, in my view, one of the most important videos I've ever made on the channel, not only to remind myself of this feat that I've strived for so long and finally managed to accomplish, but also for anyone else watching who might be in a position where they're in a job that isn't necessarily suitable for them and their greater purpose. So I really wanted to give some tips and pointers that were really paramount for my success in achieving this goal, to maybe help you better plan out how you can do this in a strategic manner as well. And I can 100% guarantee you that if this is something that you really want to accomplish one day, it is absolutely within your grasp. You just need to be consistent with your actions and believe in yourself. All right, so let's start from the beginning to give you a little bit more context about where I'm coming from. So for those of you who have been around the channel for the past couple of years, you might be aware of the fact that over the past 2-3 years, this YouTube channel was very much just a side hustle that I was working on every single day after coming home from my day job, right? So I've been working for the government of Canada actually as a business analyst. That's basically just kind of a fancy word for someone who meets with clients that want a software solution developed. I would then gather the requirements, type it all up into documentation, and give it to coders that would make the solution. And although that was fine and all for a while, it's not really what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I started right out of university. So I did actually start while I was a student for about 1 year while I was finishing my last year of university, and then just transitioned right over into being a full-time employee. And although this was great in a sense because it allowed me to quickly start making a full-time income, which also gave me some additional freedom, well, it also sort of put me in this trap that I hadn't initially realized I was in until it was kind of too late, I guess I could say, because, well, naturally, as I graduated from university and now had a full-time income, I left my parents' house, and now all of a sudden, I had a bunch of bills to pay for: rent, food, hydro, etc. You all know what I'm talking about, and this can be somewhat stressful to pay for because, well, you have to maintain some form of income. And for me, that meant this one source of highly taxable employment income. And if I'm being really honest here, this is something that actually kind of scared me because I realized that no one can really help you get out of this situation that you put yourself in other than yourself. Others can give you advice and tips on what they think might be best for you, but at the end of the day, they're just projecting their own realities and views of the world onto you, which is completely understandable and normal because everyone has their own view of life through their own perspective as well as their own life experiences. But yeah, this is just something that I realized, okay, well, if this is not going to serve my greater purpose, I need to find something that can allow me to A, fulfill me internally, but then also pay for my living expenses. But yeah, so if we backtrack a little bit here, I studied business in university. And when I first signed up for the program, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, in my career, and what I was truly passionate about, which I know for a lot of other university graduates is also the case. And so for this reason, though, I sort of just slid into this position right out of university, even without having truly thought about what I wanted to do, but it was good pay at the time. And so I sort of just fell into this mold of what for me was kind of set out for me, in that where I come from, which is Ottawa, it's the national capital of Canada, well, there's over 125,000 people in this region that work for the public service, including most of my family and my adult entourage. And so even though these are quote unquote fantastic jobs, which they really are, you can easily make $50,000 to $120,000 over the course of your career per year, and they also have great benefits, you get vacation, etc. Well, deep down, I just knew that this sort of more traditional working environment probably was not going to work out for me and isn't what I wanted to do. And the reason why I wanted to make today's video is because I know for a lot of others who might be watching this, they're also in a position where it's not necessarily something that's easy to talk about and get out there, but if you want to strive for something else, it is a possibility. And the truth is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with maintaining a more traditional 9 to 5 position, right? I'm not going to sit here and, like a lot of other 20-year-olds on the internet, bash on the idea of having a job. Rather, I would argue that for 99% of people watching this, including myself, by the way, having a job was very much one of the most important things that I was able to use and leverage to get me into the position I'm in right now. So even though ironically this video is about how I was able to quit my job and how you can do so as well, well, step number one for me, who wanted to do this strategically, was to have a job or some other form of consistent income that's coming in on a monthly basis that you can leverage and then also maintain your living expenses while you're working on your business. And this actually brings me to the next piece of the puzzle, which is that you're going to need to create a business and become an entrepreneur. If you were expecting something different from this video, well, sorry to disappoint, but a business is going to be your ticket to exiting your job. There's really no other way around it, unless, say, you had a trust fund set up for you, but that's not the reality for me. We're real people here living in the real world. Now, even though it might be really tempting to just cut ties right now with your work without having a business plan or any other form of financial plan in place, this is obviously not what I would recommend and is not what I personally did, because this would be far too risky. And as an investor also, I always try to limit my downside risk, right? It's a risk and reward type of thing. So even though you might think that, okay, I'm just gonna quit my job right now and then it's me against the world and I'm gonna go and create a business from scratch, this is going to put a lot of financial stress and burden on you, which can also be extremely difficult. So I would recommend that you maintain your job that's going to allow you to continue paying for your living expenses while you work every single day for a year, 2 years, maybe even up to 5 years, if that's how long it takes, in order to create an income on the sidelines that can very well replace your 9 to 5 income. Now, I do want to make it very clear, though, that being an entrepreneur and running your own business is in no way a walk in the park. It's very difficult. I've personally been an entrepreneur for years, and over the past 5-6 years, I've honestly had more businesses than I can even keep count of. But that's what being an entrepreneur is. It's thousands of hours of working on your businesses, trying different things out, gaining experience, all of this with little to no results and little to no recognition whatsoever. So all this to say, though, that being in a job that ultimately wasn't right for me for a roughly 3-year period pretty much put my back against the wall and allowed me to think outside of the box about how I'm going to develop a business that is right for my needs, my lifestyle, as well as what I'm truly passionate about. And ultimately what that ended up being was this YouTube channel and talking about investments, which is something that I have been doing for multiple years. Even when I was in university, I started really getting interested in finance as well as stock market investing. So it was just a natural fit for me that I would start a YouTube channel. But ultimately what this meant was hundreds of hours for years, right? 80-hour weeks. I would do a full-time work week of 40 hours at my job, come home, and then pretty much every single day work on my businesses until about 10-11 p.m. So I had more than 2 full-time jobs, and that's what it took, though, in order to get in a position where I'm now able to do what I want to do full-time. And the past 2 to 3 years have single-handedly been the most difficult period of my life, both physically and mentally. So let me tell you that working 80-hour weeks for over a year is so difficult and challenging. I'm sure anyone watching this who's done it can attest to that. But then also in my case, it was mentally difficult, right? So I knew that YouTube and making content about finance and other things that I was passionate about was the perfect business and gig for me in the larger picture. But putting out videos for over a year that get 150 views, that is mentally difficult. But I tried to not let it affect me and think short-sightedly, because I knew that the content that I had to put out was of value and could help a lot of other individuals with their own stock market investing, personal finance, etc. So this is really what allowed me to keep going even when I wanted to quit. And let me tell you that that was plentiful. I wanted to quit so many times, but being consistent with your actions over time is what allows you to unlock what's called the compound effect, where little increments each and every day, even if it's a couple more views and a couple more subscribers, will over time, let's say over a year, you look back on all the progress you've made, and what ends up happening is an exponential effect called the compound effect that works exactly the same as compound interest. This is something that you can also apply to your life. My point being though, that if you want to achieve your goals and you aspire to maybe one day quit your job and make your side hustle your full-time hustle, this is very achievable, but you'll need to work day in and day out, potentially for years, working on your craft on the sidelines after work up until maybe even midnight for a sustained period of time. This is just the reality of how you need to be consistent with your actions over time. And you can take it from me that at first, all your actions might feel like you're not getting anywhere, right? You have inertia, there's no momentum in your life. But after multiple consistent months and potentially even years of working on your business, well, you'll wake up one day and see that you're so much farther ahead than what you ever even imagined. And just to put things in perspective, even last year, not 12 months ago, I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning every day so that I could get to work at 5:30, all of this so that I could leave work a little bit earlier, get home, and then work on making videos up until 10, 11 p.m. And this was during a Canadian winter. Anyone who lives in Canada can attest to the fact that with the sun going down at 4:30 and it being negative 20 outside, you just feel like chilling on the couch and watching TV. But I just did this anyways. I would film videos in the dark with this light ring burning my eyeballs out of my skull, but I just did it because there was a greater purpose at stake. Alright, so I'm going to wrap up this first part of the video where I gave you some further context about where I was coming from and my story, and I really hope that you were able to relate to some of the elements that I had to say. And I can tell you that I'm a completely normal guy. Other than being hyper focused when I want to be on achieving my goals and working on certain projects, I'm pretty normal. And anyone else who has this same sort of a drive and consistency in their actions can achieve their goals, and it's really only a matter of time before they become a reality. But yeah, so we're gonna head on up to the office now for the second part of the video where I wanna give you some concrete steps and tips, thresholds that I personally used in order to make this a reality in what I think is a strategic manner in order to minimize my downside risk. So let's head on over to the office and we'll get right into it. By the way, if you're enjoying the video up to now though, make sure to smash the like button. It really helps the channel out, and I'd also encourage you to subscribe to the channel for other investing content that we speak about roughly 3 times a week on the channel. Alright, so the first thing that I focused on and would recommend that you also focus on if you're looking to achieve financial independence is to create multiple streams of income within your main business system. And this is actually something that I have spoken about previously on the channel, but I'm bringing it back up once again in today's video because once you do take the leap to taking your side hustle to a full-time hustle, you're obviously going to be leaving behind your steady and consistent bi-weekly paycheck. And so even though I have multiple sources of income, like for example, real estate cash flow or this YouTube channel with sub sources of income like ad revenue, affiliate income, my course and other financial products that I have available, etc. Well, even though each and every month I try and increase the amount of income that each one of these sources is generating, that's certainly not the case, especially with a business like YouTube where each month the income fluctuates greatly for each one of these sub sources of income. Right? So some months I might make double or even triple what I made in other months prior. And this can be very challenging mentally because as humans, we try to create stability in multiple different aspects of our lives, especially financially, where if you have fluctuating monthly income, it makes things very difficult, like forecasting your savings and budgeting on a monthly basis. If you're making, let's say, $10,000 one month and then the next month you make half that, so $5,000, well, that's still great monthly income, but mentally you're seeing that as being half of what you know you're able to make. So that is something that I want to put out there, that being self-employed can be quite challenging. But if you do have multiple different streams of income, well then the fluctuations of each one aren't as great on your total top line because you're able to generate income from multiple different sources, which all will sort of even out your monthly income more than if you just have one single source. With that said though, I want to make it very clear that I'm not saying to go out and start an Amazon FBA business, a YouTube channel, a photography business, and hey, maybe even a consulting business. I'm not saying to start multiple different businesses for each source of income that you want to create, because each individual business takes an unbelievable amount of time and resources to scale up. What I mean is focus in on one single business and then try to expand underneath that business with multiple different sources of sub income. And trust me, I'm speaking from experience here, because this is actually what ended up happening to me multiple times throughout my entrepreneurial journey. Even a couple of years back, from around 2019 to early 2020, I had my full-time day job, and then I was also making YouTube videos on the side, and I was also the marketing director of an influencer merchandising company, which took pretty much another 40 hours worth of my time. So I basically had 2 full-time jobs and then a part-time job being the YouTube business. But after a while, I realized that A, I was spreading myself way too thin and wasn't able to put enough energy into each one in order to make them a success. And then B, the only thing that was actually making me some consistent monthly income was my YouTube channel, even though it was not nearly all that much at the time and wasn't enough to sustain my living expenses. And long story short, I ended up dropping that other business so that I could focus all of my after work time into this YouTube business and just creating content that was of value. And without showing the actual numbers here, this is a chart of my monthly YouTube income. And the point that I have the arrow on right now is the month where I quit that other business. And you can see right away the added extra time of not spreading myself out too thin and putting all my focus towards one venture had a major impact on the income I was able to generate. So that's really the first tip and recommendation that I would give you, is that yes, you need to focus on creating multiple different streams of income, but just focus on building up one single business at a time and then expanding the amount of income streams within that one single system instead of just spreading yourself out too thin. And this now brings me into the second element that's critical if you ever aspire to one day quit your job. And that is that you need to first and foremost focus on creating value to the world. And that can take multiple different forms. It can be a physical product like most businesses. It can also be a service. It could be information like what I do with my YouTube channel. There's really an unlimited amount of ways that you can create value for the world. But this is really important to remember, because people are not just going to give you their money because you want to quit your job and you want to make money. I think that a lot of people forget that at the end of the day, what a business is made to do is solve problems and provide value to individuals or other businesses. Now, the next few elements are relevant to people who do currently have a job, because while I was making steady income and steady paychecks, I knew that this was highly valuable in the eyes of lenders, specifically banks that would lend out mortgage loans, and this was something that I wanted to take advantage of while I could. And so for those of you who may be new to the channel, yes, I am very much a stock market investor, but I also invest in real estate. I own a couple rental properties, and then I also own this house. But here's the thing, and no matter how much money I might make from my business, in the eyes of a bank, a 24-year-old making money off the internet, making YouTube videos is way too risky for them to lend hundreds of thousands of dollars in mortgage debt to. But after reading multiple different books about real estate investing and building your wealth through real estate as well as other assets, well, I knew that before taking the leap to going full time with this business, I needed to secure a couple rental properties so that I could then leverage the income I was making from my job to then be able to apply for these loans and be approved. And so that's exactly what I did, because for those of you who may not be aware, well, banks like to see at a minimum 2 years of self-employment income or income that you're taking out of your corporation and paying yourself before taking that income into consideration whatsoever to apply for mortgage debt. And so for this reason, what I did is I basically just told myself, I'm going to take out as much mortgage debt as I physically can on rental properties that are cash flowing before I do decide to take that leap. And this allowed me to not only create some monthly cash flow that's being thrown off from those properties each and every month, which helps me sustain my living expenses, but it also allows me to have put assets in my asset column right now at a younger age instead of having to wait until I was, say, 26 or 27, when the bank would be taking my YouTube business income and other forms of income into consideration for lending out mortgage debt. This is something that I've never really seen anyone on the internet speak about, but if we go back to what I was saying at the beginning of the video, this is arguably one of the most important reasons as to why I would recommend most 20-year-olds maintain a 9-to-5 job or any other form of steady income, because you're able to leverage that to your advantage in multiple different ways. Obviously, this will take an unreal amount of fiscal discipline though, because from the excess money that you have left over each month from your job, it's very easy to just blow it on other frivolous things and not have a longer term mindset and save that money in order to then invest in stocks and real estate. Speaking about savings though, let's now speak about savings goals as well as minimum monthly income thresholds that I personally set for myself before I would allow myself to take the leap to go full-time into my side hustle at the time. So one of the first things I see a lot of people in this situation question, and even I questioned for a very long time, even over a year, is at what amount of average monthly income from your side hustle is it going to be an opportune time to then decide like, hey, now is the time that I can take that leap and go full time with my side hustle? And I would say that this is an extremely difficult question to answer broadly for everyone watching this, because obviously everyone's situation is going to be different in terms of monthly expenses. But what I personally did is, the first thing in terms of saving is I wanted to have at a minimum 6 months worth of all my expenses in savings, so that if anything did happen to my YouTube income, which is very volatile, well, I was able to then have a 6-month period to find other ways of making income and landing on my feet. And since then, when I decided that I wanted 6 months worth of expenses saved up, I've since taken it up another notch, where now I'm looking to achieve 1 full year worth of expenses, just so I have that extra added financial cushion and stability, and I'm not stressed out whatsoever about maintaining more consistent monthly income. Obviously, that's money that I don't plan on touching whatsoever, but if something were to happen, you're able to know that you're not going to have to sell all of your investments prematurely in order to pay for your life. And even though for most individuals, a full year worth of expenses is probably going to be excessive, this is just what I felt comfortable with based on my financial situation. And typically on the channel, I talk about having an emergency fund, and I recommend anywhere from 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up. If you are looking though to quit your job, I would recommend at a minimum 6 months, if not more. This is just going to allow you more financial stability and peace of mind, so that if something does happen, you don't have to stress out about it, and you can just maintain working on your business instead of having to focus on making ends meet. Now, once you have the savings aspect out of the way, we can't not speak about average monthly income coming in from your business, which is going to be the most important element in achieving this whole adventure in the first place and making it sustainable. In my situation, even though it was very tempting to cut ties with my job as soon as I was making a couple $1,000s per month, I decided that I was just going to continue maintaining my overall strategy and plan of building up my savings and then also increasing my average monthly income, which in retrospect, even though it was a difficult period where I was working crazy weeks and hours, I'm still happy that I did this, because I was able to save up, buy more rental properties, and then be less financially stressed out about my average monthly income when I did transition over. And trust me, transitioning away from your job into a business that you already have built up and you're already making income is going to be a lot easier on your mental health, because you're going to have income already coming in instead of just quitting and now being like, okay, I need to create a business and actually sustain my living expenses. Moving on though, another nugget of information that I want to share with you is something that, again, I haven't really seen all that many people speak about in these types of quit job video, and that is the power of a corporation in terms of taxation. So because my business is a corporation, I'm able to generate the income into the corporation and then get taxed favorably on that income, where I can leave all my cash in there there and then only withdraw the exact amount of money that I need on a monthly basis in order to cover my living expenses. And then for this reason, I'm taxed much less on a personal basis than if I were to make, let's say, $120,000 from a government job. Right, so instead of making, say, $120,000 as an employee, and then I'm in by far the highest taxation bracket in Canada, and depending on the province you live in, this can be more than 50% of your income in that highest bracket. Well, I can go ahead and just leave my money in the corporation and then withdraw only like $30,000 in the year to cover all of my living expenses. And for this reason, I get to keep a lot more money in my pocket in the bigger picture because I'm 100% share owner of this business. And although I will admit that's not a concrete step that you can take in order to help you achieve quitting your job, it's still something that I think is really important for you to understand if you do want to be a business owner and an entrepreneur, because this is something that will allow you to keep more money in your pocket if you are a business owner over, say, an employee. So at this point in the video, if you're still watching, I just want to say thank you to every single person who subscribed to the channel and watches my videos. It's now been actually around 4 months that I have made the leap towards doing this full time, and I really just wanted to make or wait for the opportune time, that is, to make this video, because it's still just crazy to me to think that I get to make YouTube videos for a living essentially and provide value to my audience about topics that genuinely interest me, being stocks, investments, real estate, personal finance. These are topics that have always been of interest to me, and the idea that I get to share my knowledge with an audience on YouTube and do this full time is really surreal. So thank you so much to everyone who watches my videos. I highly appreciate it, and I would also really like for you to comment down below when and why you started following my channel in the first place. I am going to cut the video here. If you did enjoy the content, please take 2 seconds to drop a like. It really helps the channel grow, and also consider subscribing and hitting the bell button to be notified of all my new and upcoming investing content. So again, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.